guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at how to make a preemie hat. This is a great project to make for charity. One skein of yarn will make several hats, and once you make a few, the pattern is really easy to memorize. This preemie hat is going to fit little ones with a head circumference of about 11 inches, and that should be somewhere in the range of a 3 to 4 pound baby. The supplies you'll need to get started include the yarn. I'm using Baby Soft by Lion Brand. The colorway shown here is Parfait Pink. You'll also need a crochet hook, which for this hat size is G or 4 millimeters. And then you'll need the usual suspects, a blunt yarn needle, a stitch marker, scissors, and something to measure with. That could be a measuring tape, but I'm using a gauge ruler. The skills you'll need to complete this project include making a magic circle, chaining, half double crochet, and slip stitch. And I have videos for all of those techniques if you need to start there first. So let's get started. Before we begin with the pattern, I want to tell you a couple things about how this hat is made. The first of which is that it's worked in the spiral method. This means that at the end of each round, we're just going to keep going, making sure to keep track of our rounds with a stitch marker. So unlike most hats, we're not going to be chaining at the end of each round. We're not going to slip stitch to join, and we're definitely not going to be turning our work. And you can kind of see what I'm talking about here on this sample piece that I worked up. So we're just looking at the wrong side of this fabric, and I'm going to point out the top of the stitches with my hook. If you look closely, you'll be able to see the line that my hook is following. These are the tops of the stitches. And you can see that as I move along them that it's making a spiral. There's no discernible start of a round. And this is nice because it creates a piece without a seam. The next thing I want to do is just briefly talk about gauge. The best way to ensure that your finished piece is going to be the correct size is to measure the crown diameter after round 5. When making hats top down, you increase to a set diameter, and then you work one stitch in each round and carry on that way until the hat is the correct length. For this hat, you want the crown diameter to be around 3 inches. It doesn't have to be exactly right, but at the end of round 5, you should measure very close to 3 inches or so for the diameter of the crown. At the end of this video, I'll show you how to measure the hat length to ensure a proper fit. So let's go on to the pattern. We're going to begin this pattern by making a magic circle. If you're unfamiliar with this technique, I do have a video on how to do that. So with the magic circle, when you chain right here to close the magic circle to complete it, that chain does count as one chain. So then we're just going to chain 1, and that's going to actually be a total of chain 2. So you can see that there. And then for round 1, we're going to work 7 half double crochet in the ring. And that's because we're going to count that first chain 2 as a stitch. So this is going to be a total of 8 stitches in round 1. So this is 4. And this is 5, and 6, and the 7th. Alright, so now that I've finished round 1, I'm just going to tighten the ring of the magic circle, and that's going to pull everything together and make it possible for me to carry on with round 2. As we're looking at where to begin here, we want to look for the second chain of that chain 2. So there's the first chain down there near the center, and then just above that, you'll have to look really closely to find it, but that top of the chain 2 is there. You want to work the first half double crochet into that, and then to complete this stitch, you'll work one more half double crochet into the same stitch space, and that will be an increase. I'm just going to mark my first stitch so that I remember where the round begins. And then again, I'm just going to do one more half double crochet in this stitch space. That's an increase, and then I'm going to repeat that 7 times. So being careful to work into the next top of the stitch, we're going to work 2 half double crochet. So that's the first repeat. And then next here we have the second repeat. Then we're going to do the third repeat. And then we've got the fourth. We've got our fifth repeat. Our sixth repeat. And then in the last stitch, this will be our seventh repeat of the increase. So that's going to be a total of 16 stitches in this round. And now we're to the start of the round again. We're going to remove the stitch marker, and then I'm going to work 1/2 double crochet into this stitch. I'm going to be sure to put my stitch marker back. And then in the next stitch, I'm going to work an increase. And then I'm going to repeat that same thing 7 times around again. So there's my increase. And then I'm going to do 1/2 double crochet in the next stitch. And then here we have another increase. One in the next stitch. And then an increase. So there's a couple different ways that you can keep track of what you're doing in terms of making sure you have the right number of stitches. So the first of which is to count the repeats as you're going along. That's definitely one way to do it. What I normally do, honestly, is to just work the round and then count the stitches at the end. With a pattern like this, that's a simple repeat. If you get to the end and there's an extra stitch or the wrong number of stitches, it doesn't end on an increase like it's supposed to, then you know that you've made a mistake and you have to go back and fix something in that round. Which it's easy to do if you're working a pattern like this, because it does become just like second nature, and so it's easy to like tune into a show and just kind of like stop paying attention to what you're doing. So always be sure to check at the end of your rounds that you've got the correct number of stitches. Okay, so before I move on to the fourth round, I'm just going to tighten up the magic ring by pulling on the tail end, and that's going to close it up and make it look nice and neat. Alright, so for round 4, what we're going to be doing is working 1/2 double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches, and then we're going to work an increase. So again, making sure to mark my first stitch. I've got 2 half double crochet, and then I'm going to increase. So that's 1/2 double crochet in the next stitch, 1/2 double crochet in the next stitch, and then an increase. So 1, 2, and then an increase. And then we've got 1, 2, and then an increase. I do want to let you guys know, if I'm going a little too fast for you, I absolutely encourage you to change the playback speed through YouTube. The playback speed is sort of always in your control. If you slow me down, I will sound like a robot, and that's kind of fun. But if you are struggling to see what I'm doing, please hit the cog button that's in the bottom right hand corner, and then go up to playback speed, and then you can slow the video down. This is an easy pattern, and so I hope that with the repeats and everything, you guys are able to see at the speed that I'm going. But again, if you're struggling, that's a really easy fix, just to get a closer look. Okay, so we're on our last repeat. It's 1/2 double crochet in this stitch, 1/2 double crochet in the next, and then an increase. Okay, so let's take our stitch marker out. Now we're going to be working 1/2 double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches, and then we're going to increase and repeat that again 7 times. So there's our first 1/2 double crochet. There's our second 1/2 double crochet, and then we've got 1 in the next for 3, and then we're going to increase. So we've got 1 in the next stitch, 1 in the next stitch, 1 in the next stitch, and then an increase. So again, 1 in each of the next 3 stitches. That's 1/2 double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. There's 2. Here's our third one. And then we're going to increase by putting 2 1/2 double crochet in the same stitch space. And then we're just going to repeat this around till we get to the end of this round. Again, so we're done increasing the crown diameter of the hat. We're at the point where after this, we're just going to work 1/2 double crochet in each stitch around, and then we'll do that for the remainder of the pattern. So the way making hats works, going from top down, is to, bring it out, and then we've got it to the size that we know is going to give us the right circumference, and then we work down. And the pattern just sort of naturally falls into the shape of your head. Or in this case, a tiny baby head. I love making these hats for charity. I think that it's something that's a really good way to use up the baby scrap yarn that you do have on hand, and it's an easy, fun project to do. Very satisfying because you get a lot done in a short amount of time, and then obviously they're appreciated. I've sent them in the past to tiny hats for tiny babies, and they send them to Africa to premature children that are born there. But you can also look into donating to your local hospital. That's definitely an option. People who have premature children aren't really expecting that, and so a lot of times they've not got a tiny little hat in their bag ready to go, and so the hospitals, I think, really appreciate getting these donations. Okay, so now we are done increasing. Like I said, we're going to measure the crown diameter to make sure that everything is looking right. I'm just putting in a stitch marker so I don't pull out my work. I'm going to move the tail off to the side, and then I'm going to just get my gauge ruler, and that looks good. Again, if it's a little bit off, that's totally fine, but you do want it to be as close to 3 inches as possible. Okay, so let's get that stitch marker out. We're going to put the hook back in, and then the rest of the pattern is very, very easy. So we're just going to do 1/2 double crochet in each stitch around. It's going to be a total of 40 stitches. You do always want to make sure that you are marking the beginning of the round with your stitch marker. There's a couple different ways to count the round that you're on. You could use one of those cool little tickers. I've never actually used one of those, but I know that people like them. It makes sense, especially for stuff like this. So you could use something that's keeping track, like a row counter. You could write it down, or you could put a stitch marker at the beginning of round 6, because that's going to be a visual way to look, okay, like that's the beginning of the increases, so this is round 6. Or you could, and as you get better, this will be easier to do, you can see where the increases stop. So if you look, follow it around, and where the increases end, that's the end of round 5. So then you would just count down. Make sure that you get through row 14. Row 15 is 1/2 double crochet in each stitch around, but then we end with slip stitching to join, just to finish it off and even it out a little bit. Okay, so I'm just still continuing on 1/2 double crochet in each stitch around. I guess something I should point out, if you guys end up subbing out for a different kind of yarn, just make sure that it's not an animal-based fiber, because some children do have allergies to wool or alpaca or something like that. So you need to make sure that it's not going to create an allergic reaction, obviously. So use acrylic, that's safe. You could use cotton, but that doesn't have a ton of stretch for hats, so I don't normally like to do that, but something acrylic would be just fine. And then make sure to wash it before you donate. You do want to use a baby-friendly yarn, so nothing too harsh, nothing really fragrant, like a 7th generation unscented is definitely going to be like the best route to go, especially since these are for, preemies. Okay, so we're approaching the end of this round here. I just want to show you how I just take the stitch marker out and make sure I kind of know what round I'm on. Approaching the end here, gonna take the stitch marker out, and then we're just gonna keep going. Alright, so just carry on working 1/2 double crochet in each stitch around until you get to the start of round 15, and then we'll look at how to finish this hat up. Okay, so round 15 is 1/2 double crochet in each stitch around. Just to save time, I'm showing you guys near the end of this round since it's the same as what we've been doing. Alright, so now I'm approaching the last stitch. And before I slip stitch, I'm going to take my hook out and I'm going to measure the hat length. So I do this by joining the ends together and then just flattening it out, making sure it's even. Then I'm going to use my gauge ruler here. I'm going to bring it to the top of the hat and then I'm just going to measure across. And that's the hat length. That should measure close to 4 inches. So now I'm just going to remove the stitch marker and then I'm going to slip stitch in what was the first stitch, and that's just going to close everything up, make it a little bit more even there. Last thing you want to do is fasten off. Just pull your tail through and then just weave in your ends. That would be the final step. I love the way that this yarn looks. Every hat is kind of different, which is really fun. It's nice to see a little stack of them that are all slightly different. And that wraps up this video. I hope you have enjoyed making this hat. If you have any requests for patterns or tutorials, let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions, please let me know. And if you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!